power that speaks down the centuries to these old works of literature. Salut tout le monde, welcome back to Paris and welcome back to Coffee Time. It is the 1st of May, which is an official national holiday in France, and so like every store is closed, and it's so French out today. It's not gorgeous at all, and it's like you can't even tell that it's May as opposed to March. But anyway, it's Friday, so we can enjoy it anyway. I'm actually having an apéro tonight, which is just like drinks. Sometimes there are snacks, but it's to celebrate the end of the year because it's almost the end of the year. Like back at Smith, classes are actually done. I still have another week's worth of classes, but like I finished my visa application. I just have to like do some finalized stuff and have a meeting. But yeah, it's May, which is unbelievable. So, but that has nothing to do with what I'm gonna be talking about today. So, anyway, so what I have for coffee time today is some nice coffee, of course, and I have a palmier, which it usually looks like that, but I broke it. I had to like check out like 4 bakeries to find one that was open. Like not even my grocery store was open today, but I found one, so we're all good. Palmiers are actually like my favorite thing. They're fantastic. It's just like these layers of pastry covered in like this sweet glaze. Great. So if you follow my blog or my Instagram or my Tumblr or whatever, you probably know that I've been taking a course on contemporary French theater this semester, and that course has been fantastic, and we had our final performance this week, and we saw Antigone with Juliette Binoche, directed by Ivo Van Hove at the Théâtre de la Ville at Châtelet, and it was really great. And it got me thinking, because I had never seen Antigone before, and so it wasn't my favorite performance that I've seen in this class, but it's the one that got me thinking the most, I would say. And I don't have a background in Greek theater. I haven't read many of the classics, despite, you know, going there and being an archaeologist and all that crap. So for a lot of reasons, this performance just got me thinking about it, and so I have many thoughts, and here's where I'm gonna say them. So I hope you're ready. Let's get started. So as a bit of background, Antigone is a classical Greek tragedy which was written by Sophocles. Antigone is the main character, and she is the daughter slash sister of Oedipus. She's one of the last remaining children. A lot of them like killed themselves or just like disappeared as soon as everything that happened with Oedipus was found out. And so she's one of the few ones left. She also has a sister, Ismene, and by this point Oedipus is already dead. She has her sister Ismene, who is still alive. And right before the play starts, there was a civil war, basically, in the city of Thebes, which is where the play takes place, between Polynice and another brother. So Polynice and this other brother they're already dead. And basically they went to war over the fate of the city who would rule, because they were supposed to rule equally, each take like a year or 2 and then switch off. But the one brother said, no, you can't come back on the throne. And so Polynice led an army against Thebes, and they both lost. And now the king Creon is in control, who is the uncle of Antigone. Just an uncle, I think. I don't think they're more related than that. I think he's the mother's brother, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, the play opens with Antigone coming to Ismene, her sister, and telling her this terrible news. And Ismene already knows that her 2 brothers are dead, but Creon has issued an edict that the first brother can be buried and mourned, as is tradition and as is normal in ancient Greece. But Polynice was a traitor to the country, and he is not to be mourned or buried, and his body's supposed to be left out on the battlefield for the dogs and the birds and everything like that to come and have their way with his dead body. And so and this means that he cannot go on to the afterlife. Like, his soul is going to disappear. He's not going to be mourned, and they're not going to make the proper sacrifices for him, which means he cannot go to the Greek afterlife. His soul is basically condemned to be like a ghost, except like less powerful. Like, he's just a shade. So this is not only a punishment for his crimes, because you can't really punish him because he's already dead, so this is a punishment in the afterlife that Creon has decreed. And so Antigone and Ismene are upset by this. Of course, this is their brother. But Antigone decides that she's going to bury him anyway, despite what the law says, and Creon has decreed death for anyone who counteracts his law. And Ismene refuses to help her. Antigone buries Polynice, and she's caught, and she confesses her crime, so Creon sends her to death. He basically entombs her with a little food and water so that she's still alive, and because it's a Greek tragedy, a seer shows up, and not everyone is against this besides Creon. There's rumblings in the city that what she did was the right thing, and that Creon's being too harsh. And so eventually it takes a seer telling him, your son is gonna die, who is incidentally engaged to Antigone. Anyway, the seer Tiresias tells Creon that his son is going to die unless he saves Antigone. And so they rush and they hurry to get to Antigone, but it's too late. She's already killed herself. And then Hymen, the fiance/son of Creon, the fiance of Antigone/son of Creon. It's Oedipus, so you gotta be clear about family relationships. He kills himself literally in front of Creon's eyes on the tomb of Antigone. So we got a little bit of Romeo and Juliet happening, and then a messenger comes back to the city and tells Eurydice, who is the wife of Creon and the mother of Haemon, that her only son has killed himself, and it's basically her husband's fault. And so she kills herself, and Creon basically ends the play begging for his own death because he's destroyed his own family and gone against the will of the gods. And it's a Greek tragedy, so that's how these things go. So anyway, that's the background of the play, and it's, 2,000 years old, so it's out of copyright, so you can find a copy of the translation if you're looking for one pretty easily, I'm sure. But that's the gist of it. So Ivo van Hove is now one of my favorite directors. I watched 2 or 3 of his plays this semester. And so he's Dutch. He does most of his work in Amsterdam, and he's a very modern, contemporary director. Like, the scenes are very bare and it's kind of out of time, so you get this feeling that the play is very modern while also being very classical and still in ancient Greece, but you feel like it's not representing ancient Greece. This is out of time, is the feeling you get watching this. So in the interview in the playbill, he basically talked about the Malaysian Airlines flight that was shot down over the Ukraine, and how they had left these bodies out for weeks before they were brought back to the Netherlands. And so he brings that in a little bit, like there's videos playing on the background of the stage, and there's like modern cities, like London is shown, and there's modern people and deserts, and so you feel like it could be today, and it's like the same things happen. So that's what he talks about, because that's the Dutch recent flashpoint. So when I first saw it, my immediate reaction was, wow, this is about the power of youth, because Antigone is unmarried, but she's engaged, so that makes her, in classical terms, she'd be between 15-ish, like around there. She's young, and then Haemon, her fiance, would be like maybe 20. So this is the power of the young people who are willing to disobey the laws of the city and family to show what's right and what needs to be done. Because this edict is it's punitive. It's not helping anyone. He's already dead. Don't punish him in the afterlife, sort of thing. So it's the same thing with Romeo and Juliet. It's a thing about the power of the youth to change the minds of the adults and go with what is right as opposed to what has been done before. Which it's interesting because you just have, it's Juliette Binoche and this English actor, and they're not 20 and 15, so you just have to, like, when they're talking about being engaged, you just like know that they're younger than they appear. So that's what I was starting to think about, like, the first day after I saw the play. Like, immediately after the play was over, I turned to my friend and I was like, wow, that was about the power of youth. Then so as I, like, thought about the play and let it sit, I thought, oh, this is about the power of civil disobedience, and not even just the power, like, the necessity of civil disobedience. Because there's a big argument scene between Antigone and Creon, where she's basically saying she obeyed the laws of gods, which supersede the laws of man, in this case Creon. And Creon tells her that his laws have precedent, like, it doesn't matter what the gods say, his laws need to be obeyed. And she basically says, who can say when the laws of gods were formed? We don't know, we have to obey those first. And it's a big argument, and so that's why she buries her brother, even though she knows she will be killed. She knows she has to obey these laws which come first, the laws of the gods and nature. And so as I was, like, reflecting on this, I realized, like, Ivo van Hove, he's Dutch, so of course he brought it back to the bodies in the Ukraine, but I'm American, so I started, as soon as I started thinking about this disobedience, I started thinking about everything that's happening in the US right now, like Maryland, and bodies being left out unburied, like, that's Ferguson, that's what's happening. And it's just, like, Creon was not right. Everyone dies because he did not listen to the laws of nature and the gods. And so, like, the same thing happens, like, everyone's dying because we're not listening to we're not following the proper laws, the laws of, like, common decency. We're following the laws of man, which are, in this case, historically racist and oppressive. And so this is a 2,000-year-old piece of theater, and it's applicable to so much that we're still doing today. Literally the same things are happening. Obviously not exactly the same, but it's the same basic themes that are coming up, not just in one country, but all over the world. As I was reflecting on this out-of-time representation of this 3,000-year-old piece of theater, I realized it's applicable across. It's out of time because it's applicable anywhere. Like, even though they mention Zeus, it doesn't matter. It could stand in for anyone and anything. It's applicable in the Ukraine, it's applicable in Syria, it's applicable in Ferguson, Missouri, and it's that sort of thing. It shows you just what power is in old words and how far we have not come in 3,000 years. Even though I'm not that familiar with a lot of Greek theater, I'm working on it, but I'm working on it. I really love theater and reinterpretations of things because they showed, like if you reinterpret Shakespeare, you can find the same societal problems he talks about in 1500 today. And if you reinterpret Sophocles, you can find the same thing. And that's really sad, but it's also really powerful in a way. Like, maybe no one's gonna listen to someone who writes a play specifically about Ferguson and publishes it right now. But if you did a modern representation of Sophocles and it's clearly in Ferguson or in New York or somewhere, people are gonna listen to it. So there's a power that speaks down the centuries to these old works of literature, and I just love modern interpretations that recognize and honor that power. So when you take a classic like Shakespeare or like Antigone and you represent it exactly as it would have been represented during their day, like if Shakespeare were sitting in the audience or up on the stage himself, and you have the same costumes, you have the same staging, whatever, because you can do that. People still do that. It has an intrinsic value, but I think that you can even add to that value if you take it out of its context and apply it to either the modern context or a universal, out-of-time context. Because then people are going to draw their own conclusions, and it's gonna affect the way they think. Like, if you see a completely period-specific, historically accurate representation of Othello, you're gonna think, wow, that was really historically accurate, but you might not necessarily apply what are the themes to today. Like, you might not see that the same problems that brought Othello down are still in place today. And that's too bad, because you can apply those problems. You can apply what you learn in Othello to what you see every day, but you sometimes need a little nudge from a good director or good staging. So that's what I have for you today. I think the power of theatre rests in people being able to apply theatre to their everyday lives. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. Do you think that traditional representations have more intrinsic value than contemporary ones? Let me know, please. This will be a fun conversation, or interesting. We'll go with interesting. And give this a like if you like this video, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on these coffee time chats. And on my Monday videos, don't forget about those either. So there'll be a new video soon, but don't forget that if you miss me in the meantime, you can find me across the internet at the links below. Hope you have an excellent weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye!